Thanks for the introduction, Vanessa. Tanya and I were really excited to be here to help learn about managing and editing your content. Canopy itself has been working with UCSF for 9+ years, and we're excited to be here with you folks. So let's dig in. So did you know that the first website was actually introduced 31 years ago? That was August 6th, sorry, in 1991 by Tim Berners-Lee. It was literally a website about the World Wide Web. Since then, the internet's grown a lot. There's over 1 billion websites out there. Over 1 million of those are actually running Drupal. Drupal is actually really popular with the higher ed folks. About 71% of the top 100 universities are actually using Drupal these days. UCSF is included in there. The UCF Web Services hosts nearly 1,000 Drupal websites currently. It's the preferred content management system, and it's the one that's supported. So a lot of you folks here could be running or probably on Drupal. A few of you that are on WordPress or Squarespace, you're still out there in the decentralized ecosystem as well, and this will apply to you.
Thanks, Shane, for the fun bit of trivia. So let's dig in, shall we? When managing website content, we need to consider a few factors. So let's start with accessibility, shall we? First, we need to gain a better understanding of the audience needs and really step into their shoes. So to do this, you can try navigating your site with just your keyboard or even a screen reader. You can even do things like zoom in or use grayscale and really test out how that feels. Next, you want to make sure you plan for accessible content. So in planning, you want to make sure you've got scripts for captions or videos, labeling for your form fields, and provide users controls for interactive content like your carousels and such, and make sure you've got that alternate text, so that when folks are using that, they get the same effect. You also want to make sure you follow the UCSF 3-tiered approach. This approach covers automated testing, automated and manual checks, and testing with users from the disability community. We've linked that tiered approach here in this slide. It's also included at the end for you to be able to grab after we go through the presentation. And lastly, we want to make sure that you pay attention to the WCAG 2.0 guidelines. We recommend getting familiar with these guidelines so that you really have clarity and understanding on how to best support your users, and you know when to reach out for help from someone like Web Services or Canopy if you need any.
All right, so there's many tools and tricks for accessibility and accessible content. Some of those are Site Improve, Lighthouse or Google Web.dev, their measure page. We're grouping those together. There's a reason for that, which we'll get to on the next slide. And you, of course, you are the best tool out there. So if we start with Site Improve is a wonderful tool. It's very well used, and it's actually available for UCSF websites. So this real-time web-based tool allows you to keep tabs on your site for accessibility and more. Periodically crawls your site to provide updated reports. It marks issues as resolved as they get fixed, and it allows you to manually check and mark things as resolved that require that manual check. Again, many use cases for Site Improve, including readability, broken links, and more, which are outside of accessibility. So it's a very lovely tool. Now, if we move into the next one, Lighthouse or Web Devs/Measure, these are grouped together because really the measure page quality page on web.dev is a lot easier to use for the non-technical folks. Put in your URL and you hit search or run audit, and it pulls out the report for you. So these are really good tools to get a baseline of your page quality, and in this case, your accessibility. It scores on 4 categories, including your accessibility, your performance, your best practices, and your search engine optimization. So this is going to give you a good idea of accessibility fixes that can be done by yourself and the ones that may require a developer. But in the end, what it's going to do is it's going to inform you on the quality of the accessibility of your page.
And well, of course, we keep saying this because we really firmly believe that you are the best tool in your toolkit. You can do things like add descriptive links. Search engines pay attention to these links, and so associating keywords with these links is helpful. You can use alt text on images to provide keywords that explain the value of an image. So when you're managing your media, you want to be sure to also use captions on your videos, like I mentioned before. This helps give a more meaningful text that showcases the value of that video in a non-visual way, of course. So when you're working with screen readers or folks who need to have the captions. Also pay special attention to the heading order. Search engines weight the value of header tags. So this is important for ranking, but also for users who are going to be accessing your content through an assistive device. And lastly, as I mentioned before, testing your navigation by navigating your site with simply just your keyboard. And you can do this by using your tab key or your the shift plus tab keys. So now let's talk about how performance impacts SEO. We paired these together because they're sort of connected thanks to the new Google algorithm, the Core Web Vitals. So we thought we'd cover these together.
All right. Thanks, Tanya. So the Core Web Vitals is a quality guide. It's going to provide direct access to metrics that site owners can understand. It's going to help folks deliver a higher user experience. And at the core, there's 3 metrics that it uses to score. What these are your load-in, your interactivity, and your visual stability of the page's content. So these metrics help a content editor build knowledge around which improvements could be made, because in the end, a performance site is generally an SEO-friendly site. So with Core Web Vitals, there are some terms worth knowing. Some of these are your cumulative layout shift, or CLS. The easiest way to think of this is the content shifting or jumping around as the page loads. Your first contentful paint, or FCP. This is the first noticeable element on the page, like an image or text. The largest contentful paint, or LCP. This is the time it takes for the largest item on your page to load. This may be a video or your page's hero image. Next up, we have your time to interactive, or TTI. This is the amount of time it takes for a page to become fully interactive. This one's really exciting, your speed index. This is the measure of how quickly the content on your page is visibly populated. And lastly, we have the total blocking time, which can be described as the total amount of time it takes between your site starting to load and a user can actually start to interact with your site. So it's the longer the wait, the higher chance your user may bounce. These are important for editors to know because you're the ones that are able to more tailor directly these items.
Okay, lots of good, important information there. I am a big believer in, if we're going to share acronyms, we got to tell y'all what they mean. So what can we do to help reduce these times? We can do things like pay attention to your image size. Images are generally optimized for the most part with your site. Your site does that itself, but you can also do things to optimize those before you upload to the site. You want to consider how many embeds or iframes you're putting on each page. And avoid really, really long pages with lots and lots of content. Because if you think about it, how many users are going all the way to the bottom to look at that content down the very bottom? So if you've got a lot of content, we recommend maybe breaking this into smaller pages. Also pay attention to media. Too much media can create a lag. So if your site's having to load all that media up, it's going to slow things down naturally, right? And then the use of carousels and slideshows that are set to autoplay. Now, this is very popular with higher ed, we know. Folks really like to use the carousels in some cases. And so we just caution, if you're going to use those, do so carefully. Aim to set it not to autoplay. Make sure that the user has a chance to mute or stop them, or even consider a different approach to your message. Anything will help. Because overall, we want to make sure that your page load's not impacted, because that's going to bring down the performance and the SEO.
All right. So what about the SEO, and how can you help SEO with your content? When you upload images to your site, take a moment to add your alt tags, as well as add missing alt tags to existing images. You're going to hear us repeat this throughout this deck. If you're posting a press release or content that's from another site, source it. It's duplicate content. Be sure to also fill out the canonical meta tag. The canonical meta tag tells search engines the actual source URL of the content. Always take a moment to ensure your website has a title and descriptive meta tags, that they're filled out, that they actually make sense. Most content management systems these days will automatically fill them in. It's good to check if they're truncated or if they actually make sense. A truncated title may not make sense when you can shorten it to fit in the allotted character spacing. It's also really good to remember how unnecessary it is to be stuffing your webpage with keywords. This is an old game from many years ago. It's one that none of us should really be playing today. So we do want to mention it. The best approach is write real content, write authentic content, and your page will rank just fine. So let's get into some tools. So there are many performance and SEO tools out there, equally as many tips and tricks. What we're going to focus and suggest here is for both performance and SEO, Lighthouse, or again, web.dev/measure for your non-technical editors. These are fast, efficient tools to give you an overview of your site's performance and SEO and its overall page quality. The great thing I'll suggest about webs.dev/measure for non-technical folks is it's going to ignore your browser's cache, which will be really important when measuring performance. For the advanced SEO, we have Screaming Frog SEO Spider. This app crawls and extracts SEO data from your pages and gives you an in-depth overview of your site's SEO. Of course, following the theme of this presentation, the best tool is you. A tip we're going to give to all clients is always, again, write authentic, real content. There's nothing better than this. When you update a page, check those meta tags. Check your page's URL. Is the URL too long? Does it actually make sense? If you change it, does a redirect happen? Or does it end up 404ing? Are your images optimized? Are they resized properly? Speaking of images and resizing them, most sites are going to automatically do this for you. It's going to resize and compress them. In general, though, if you're uploading a more web-friendly image, it may yield better results. If anything, at the end of the day, your server administrators may thank you because you're actually taking up less disk space.
Always good to have those folks on your side, right? Okay, so thanks for covering all that great knowledge transfer, Shane. And now I just want to talk about the humans for a second, because I feel like content and humans are the biggest drivers to all of our web projects. Everyone in your department or your school or your org, your institute, they're all going to have a stake in your website, and they're going to have conflicting needs or wants or ideas. And so they may want to participate, but they might actually not have capacity. So we recommend creating a content playbook. This is going to be essentially your content style guide, and it's going to provide consistency for your content and help keep everybody corralled. So it needs to cover a few things to be successful. We want to make sure that it includes your mission, voice and tone, words to use and avoid, first time use of phrases or such, proper spelling, acronyms, and grammatical mechanics, and so on. You want to make sure you reiterate the mission of your organization here and make sure to repeat it. It's always good in case you have a new employee or contractors or other folks who are joining the team, or if you simply just need a refresher for yourself. And when we're talking about voice and tone, voice is simply how you're speaking as an organization, as a unit. And the tone is really the manner in which you're speaking. So think about the difference between speaking to your children or texting one of them. It's important to also note words to avoid and use. So these are simply just a list we'd recommend. This helps your team build a common vocabulary that really ties everything together and guides folks, providing clarity and noting what to avoid. For example, at Canopy, we're big advocates of diversity and inclusion. So in our playbook, we try to list words that are inclusive versus not. Even when it comes to our technical writing, we've changed things like whitelist or blacklist to be allowed or defined. When we're talking about noting the first versus subsequent usage, this is simply documenting so everyone understands and knows when they don't have to keep repeating that phrase each time, and it just makes it easier for everyone. So are we stating the entire term, or are we going with an abbreviated? And everyone knows what to do. Spelling is also super important. It's very important. So make sure that everyone knows how each acronym is defined and they understand the proper spelling for brand specific terms, because things are spelled differently. For example, Anchor Studies is all capitals. So just make sure everyone understands. Lastly, grammar don't forget about this. Grammar is important. It's really smart to note things like how and where you're going to use commas, what kind of date format you're going to be adopting. This helps you keep your content cohesive and tidy. And a great tool that we love and use in-house is Grammarly. So we'd highly recommend that. And remember, be sure to give access to this lovely little document to all the folks who are going to be part of your website. Make sure that they have access and they read it to start following it. You want to make sure you review it annually. The terms, goals, and ideas may change over time as people change. So you want to make sure you also continue to keep your language inclusive and avoid any of the ists, I always say. And also check out our webinar. We're going to link it at the last page as well. There's a webinar about conclusive content writing that might help you build out this playbook a little better. Over to you, Shane.
All right. Now that we have a plan for the humans, let's talk about your content. The site's content cleanup is a lot less daunting if you do it in small bits. This includes things like making sure your content's fresh, current, and up to date. Anything, it's going to help you remove that article that hasn't been relevant, but is 10 years old and still on your site. So we recommend doing this by creating a content schedule. Once a quarter, twice a year, whatever's going to work for you and your team. Review your site's oldest content. Test that the content holds up against your mission, your values. See if it still stands up. So then we get into media management. So this can be a really big one. These are your videos, your images, your PDFs, they're your assets. Removing unused or replacing images to keep things fresh and naming your files appropriately is a great way to manage your media and not get lost in having all of these images that are just randomly generated hashtags and numbers. So lastly, your editors. Review your users, the ones that can log into your site. There's really no reason for users that haven't logged in 5 years to have access to your site. Employees that have left the organization can be removed. So audit their access, deactivate users, remove users. It's good for security and it helps with that cleanup. All right, so can't talk about content cleanup without talking about your content inventory. So it's good to do these together. We always recommend using something like a tool like Screaming Frog again, or Site Improve to help with this. These tools can export your site to a spreadsheet where you can actually start to give them a status, such as I want to rewrite this, going to migrate this to a different site, or if we're going to migrate to the new site when we rebuild it, or we're going to delete it. It also helps you define what type of content they are. Is it a news? Is it a profile? Is it a blog, events, a publication? What type of content in this? And lastly, it allows you to tag it with your persona or your audience. So you can tag this as research, this is for a student, this is for a potential student, for your alumni, for your donors, and so forth. So then you know who that content is written for. So now let's get into readability of your content. So the Fletch reading ease or the Fletch Kincaid grade level can help you assess the readability of your site. It's really helpful to consider the average reading level of your content and of your target audience and pair those together. A publication is going to read very different than a site to gain alumni or donors. With this, I would also recommend checking broken links. We've all clicked on a broken link and got that infamous 404 page. Some of these are pretty funny, which is great. Site Improve actually can help you identify broken links, and we always recommend you fix these as soon as you find them. So next is media tips again. We're going to get back into media, and this could be a presentation on its own, and it actually was in an accessible media presentation done in December of last year, which we will link to here. We'd highly recommend it. But with that media, a few things to consider is name your file names appropriately, add those alt tags to your images, again, size and optimize your images, embed your videos, make sure you have captions available for them. Transcripts are always really great as well. Never autoplay videos or audio files, and always provide video controls. Your PDFs can actually be made accessible as well. And you can actually make your PDFs so your site search can search them, allowing users to find deeper content as well. Again, we suggest checking out the webinar from December of last year because it goes more in depth with accessible media in particular.
Okay, well, thank you, Shane. I mean, all of this is for our users, all the content that we're putting on the website, it's for our users, right? So the best approach is understanding the user and their needs. And while everyone may have a really great grasp on what folks might want, we have a couple of ways we like to dig in and confirm that everyone's on the right track that I thought we might share as we close off today. So Google Analytics, I'm sure lots of folks are familiar with this, and Google Analytics is a fan favorite. Everyone loves it. It's even if you're not really like a high level user, it's really built for the non-techies. So you can easily get in there and jump in, at the very least, get a snapshot of where things are at, because it gives you readings like things, to figure out where folks are dropping off and where folks are coming from and so on. It also helps you see what devices they might use and more. So then you can start to think about your accessibility standards that you want to try to meet. At a higher level, at the very least, you can track events and start to look at conversions. So when we get back to having in-person events again, this will be really helpful to have this piece of information. And then heat mapping. I love this tool because it's essentially acceptable stalking. I always say it allows you to do things like mapping anonymous recordings of your user sessions. You can do some scroll mapping and then find out how many folks are going to the bottom of the page to look at that content that you've buried way down there, and help you decide if you need to break this into smaller pages. So even if you're not undertaking a big build or a big reimagine, we recommend using these tools on a regular basis to make sure that you have a nice understanding of the pulse of your users. We've added, like we said, all the links to the tools we're recommending here and some other helpful links to different webinars and such and blogs to help you along your way. And with that, we'd like to open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing. Okay.
Thank you, Shane and Tanya, so much for that presentation. Again, just as a reminder, anybody can feel free to drop questions in the chat about tools or just regular content advice, and we'd be happy to answer them.
I'll go ahead and read them. Nancy asks, I need assistance on how to track analytics for our website and how to have a better website for disabled folks using Site Improve for Drupal. Can you help me with that?
Shane, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So tracking your analytics on your site, Google Analytics is one I would always use and recommend. Site Improve is great to gain some insights as well. Hotjar, which Tanya just mentioned, is a really good way of seeing where people are clicking around on your sites. So you can actually see where people are clicking and where people are falling off on mobile and desktop. So it's a really good way of tracking how people are using your site and seeing it. Site Improve will give you that real-time sort of results up to a certain amount of views. So that's really, really lovely. Now, tracking it for disabled folks. One way to do that is with those tracking tools. It can be a bit more difficult, but what you can also do is put surveys out where you're literally, an exit survey saying, were you able to find what you weren't, what you needed, what you couldn't, and doing regular audits of your site. Do your links have focus dates? Do they not? And sort of starting to address those little fine-tuned things to make sure that it is accessible for folks. With accessibility, there is so much that can be done automatically, such as with Site Improve, with Google Lighthouse. There is a certain amount that needs to be done manually, like screen reader testing, keyboard navigation, which we always recommend using a suite of tools as well as manual, because there is no tool that will catch everything at the moment. Mm-hmm. And Site Improve does a really good job of flagging things of this requires a manual check.
Thanks, Shane. Let's see, what else is there? Questions. How often should we be updating our Drupal websites? Well, I mean, it really depends on a number of, I think we can team tackle this one, Shane, but I mean, it really depends on the infrastructure of your Drupal website and how much your content might be changing. I mean, you should be keeping a good pulse on your content and refreshing it all the time. So like Shane mentioned, when he was going through doing the content audit, setting time aside each month to go through and look at your tags and your link images and such, you want to be doing this on a regular basis so that you don't have this big giant overhaul. You know, it's like getting our kids to clean their rooms every Saturday so they don't have to spend 3 hours in there on Sunday cleaning the mess. So I mean, this is a regular thing. If we're talking about updating in terms of content, that should be a common regular occurrence. And if you're talking about a complete rebuild, the average lifespan of a website is around 2 years. So it really depends on what you're hoping to get out of your website. Shane, would you add anything to that? Or did I cover it?
I think you covered it all. Absolutely. As you always do. All right.
Next one, Shane, want to take that one?
Yeah, let's go into, also, I removed a URL of a PDF from my website, but someone told me they're still able to access it when searching it using Google. How can I remove the PDF completely from any type of search? So Google has a tool which can allow you to alert to them that a URL has been removed. That's one way to go about it. You can redirect it. So if that people still find that PDF, that URL will just redirect back to your website. That's another option. You can resubmit your site map to Google, which it should be doing automatically, ideally, you know, once a week or once a month. And that will slowly remove it as well. But if you want to move it up really quickly, a redirect would just direct that traffic back to your website, which is not a bad idea. You could send it to the homepage or to an updated PDF, something like that.
There's a question. I'm going to pivot to the chat for just 1 second. There's a question about Drupal 10, and maybe Vanessa or Jill would like to take that.
Yeah, so Drupal 7 is we have an agreement with our hosting provider that they're gonna support Drupal 7 until I believe 2024. So if you see anything saying that Drupal 7's reaching end of life this year, that does not apply for any of the hosted sites that we have at UCSF. We are currently working on a Drupal 10 site builder. Currently, the current version of site builder is on Drupal 7. Hopefully, we'll have some more information on that, and we'll send it out to our listservs in the summertime. But we'll definitely keep everyone up to date on that.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm going to piggyback on what you said and just sort of reassure everyone that when we reach end of life on Drupal 7, it's okay. Your site is not going to become the black screen of death. It won't fall apart. You're part of an infrastructure at UCSF IT that's partnered with Acquia, and they have, Acquia has people who sit on the security committee of Drupal that will be able to provide end of life support to make sure that you don't have those vulnerabilities that we would need to worry about when end of life comes. So as Vanessa said, you're okay to stay where you are for a couple of years, and Acquia is committed to supporting folks and to supporting the infrastructure that long. So again, like no stress. I know it sounds scary. They're like end of life. It makes you feel like the sky is falling, but really it's going to be okay. So you can go, you know, calm and steady. The other question we had was, is there an easy way to transition a Google site to Drupal? Shane, that's definitely all you, sir.
Yeah, I have not transitioned to Google site. I would imagine, though, typically sites can be exported. So most content management systems allow it to be exported in one format or another. Usually once it gets it into some sort of format that's out there, it can be imported, whether it's into Drupal or into a intermittent system that then can go into Drupal. Alternatively, if there's no way to export, sites can actually be scraped. So it's literally a developer writing a short bit of JavaScript which will export it into like an Excel document, pretty much. And then that can be imported in as a CSV file. So it's relatively easy. Most Google sites are pretty simplistic and content driven. So it's pretty easy to get out of, is what I'm going to say without seeing your site directly.
And of course, if you need a little help in the planning phase, I always say, plan your work your plan. Nothing beats a really good, solid strategy on making your website a success. So looping in an expert like someone like Canopy or Web Services to help you get all the ducks in a row so that you don't get in and then find out it's much bigger than you thought you bit off at the beginning. I see some questions in the chat about whether the recording will be available or that they missed previous webinars and how do they access those. Those are accessible. We've got those posted on our YouTube channel and also on our website, and we can make sure we share links to those. So if you have trouble finding any specific one, please do feel free to reach out to us, to Allison, myself, or Shane, or Jill, or Vanessa, and they'll connect you and we'll make sure that you get what you need.
There's one more question in chat
that
I saw
yes.
Allison flagged me on. Shane mentioned canonical meta tags in the context of a press release repost. I'm not familiar with the concept of meta tags. Will you share more, please? So a meta tag is essentially a snippet of HTML code that contains information about your site. They're hidden to our visual eyes. They're in the code, and search engines use these to pull out and extract information on your site for your ranking and so forth. It's the sort of 30-second elevator pitch on them. What those meta tags can be is there is a wide range of them of what they can exist, but overall ones that your title will typically pull from the title of your site, your title meta tag, your description will typically pull from the body field or an excerpt. Now those can all be overwritten and you can manually edit them. And that's really good to do because you can tailor them in specifically because they do have a character limit. So if your title is really long and it's being truncated, you can actually manually shorten that to make it have it make more sense to the user when it displays in search results.
Good, solid answer. I think we've gotten all of them. Oh, there's another one. This, I think perhaps maybe Vanessa, are there any continuing or active training sessions for Drupal or Site Improve? Does UCSF have any of those? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Jill, who's also on the call and works in web services with me, actually used to do a 2-hour site builder lab training back in 2020. Remember that when we used to meet in person in the office? So those are actually listed on our web services website. I will drop that in the chat and make sure that gets sent out as well. But we have 2 videos. So one is essentially a 2-hour how to build a UCSF site builder from scratch. It's transcripted. It has different tables of contents that Jill did for us, and the other training is a Site Improve accessibility kickoff meeting as well. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Jill.
I have a question for folks. I'm curious, is everyone here attending today, is everyone on Drupal, or do we maybe there's a Google site, that there's a question about a Google site, but I'm curious of how many Drupal users we have versus WordPress or something else. Do you feel comfortable popping in the chat what technology you're using? Look at all those Drupals. Web services, doesn't that make you proud?
I see so much Drupal.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Look at all the Drupal. Oh, wow. Dries would be very proud. That's great. Yeah, we love Drupal too. It definitely meets the need. Definitely meets the need. Jane, do you have any questions for the attendees that I didn't ask?
No, if there's nothing else though, I think Vanessa, we could probably wrap this up.
Yes. So thank you all so much for the questions. Thank you, Shane and Tanya, so much for joining us. We will be sending out the slide deck as well as all these links that Jill and I dropped in the chat. As a reminder, if anybody has any questions, you can reach Canopy at hello@canopy.com. And thank you all so much for joining us today. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.